Welcome to the latest episode of The Worldly Wise, the Federal's program that decodes international developments. Uh, One of the things that really surprised the world was the recent announcement by Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook that he was shutting down the fact checking network in the United States. Uh, it was a surprise because the fact checking issue is very important, and especially in these days of fake news that's rampant. Fact checking was seen as some kind of a bulwark against news, misinformation, wrong news, etc. But then um, we have it. So, uh, and this fact checking network is something, though it's the name is very familiar, not many people really understand how it works, what it is, and all that. So today we have with us an experienced journalist and an academic, Kanchan Kaur, who's worked in the area of media literacy and fact checking since 2016. She's an India assessor for the International Fact Checking Network that certifies fact checking websites. Uh, so, Facebook used to hire as independent third party fact checkers websites certified by IFCN, in which Kanchan Kaur also was part of before it shut down the fact checking program. So, Kanchan, what is this all about? I mean, what is the significance? I mean, how is it something? Is it an important development, or I mean, what is it?
Yes. Hi, Dakshin. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
One is, I think if we start at how important this is, if you look at the amount of misinformation that is floating around on the internet, especially because of the internet, we see that a lot of us do not know what is true and what is not. It's not that there wasn't misinformation earlier, but the spread of the misinformation and the kind of misinformation and the response it evokes on social media and on the internet makes it absolutely dangerous. In 2018, we've had as many as 31 deaths in India, according to some reports, because of one WhatsApp forward that said that kidnappers were coming to your village, town, etc., to take away children. Right? So complete strangers were killed. So that is one of the reasons why it's important that fact-checking programs have worked. And with Meta, now, fact, because a lot of the misinformation floats on these platform companies, it has been made imperative for these platform companies. They've come under tremendous pressure, not just from governments but also from users and other such parties, to ensure that their platform produces clean and as much as possible true information. And if it's not true, it should at least be flagged to say that there is a problem with this misinformation, and this is which is what Meta used to do. And because a large amount of misinformation actually floats on the Meta platform, whether it's Facebook, whether it's Instagram or WhatsApp, that is where a lot of the misinformation floats. Twitter is small fry by those dimensions.
So now that Mark Zuckerberg has shut down this fact-checking network in the US for Meta, um, what does that mean? I mean, does it mean that there's going to be no more checks?
So let me tell you how it works. That probably will give you a better idea. So Meta and fact checking actually came together in a very organic way. So in the 2016 elections, Facebook, that time it was Facebook and not really Meta, came under a lot of flack for actually for the amount of misinformation that floated around the 2016 Trump elections. People said that there was a lot of misinformation going. There were allegations of Russian interference on the elections, and there were a lot of stories going around. At the same time, the International Fact Checking Network was actually being founded, and they had started certifying websites. What the IFCN does is that what it does is it, of course, certifies fact checkers. It holds conferences to discuss challenges, solutions, and It also lies with big tech. So it works as a measure of credibility. What it really does is that it examines, it looks at independent fact checkers who would assess and rate the accuracies of stories that surface on any platform, especially Meta platform. And the way they would do it would be by they would follow a code of principles set up by the IFCN. And this code had 5 commitments to partisanship and no sorry to non-partisanship and fairness, to transparency of sources, to transparencies of funding and organization, and to transparency of methodology, as well as an open and honest corrections policies. Now, all applicants to the IFCN certification must demonstrate that they follow this code, and their work over the past year is assessed by independent assessors who then recommend to the IFCN board whether this website could be certified by the network. If the decision is a yes, the website can then display a badge of the IFCN on its website, and they can apply to Meta for third-party fact-checking network. So over the last few years, now according to some reports that I've been reading, this program, this Meta's fact-checking program, has more than 80 fact-checking organizations globally in several languages, including in India in Hindi, Telugu, Bangla, Tamil, and Malayalam. Now, what happens is Meta pays these fact checkers for flagging content, or basically flagging content on its website. Now, though the origin of these fact-checking websites might have been altruistic, but the point is for them to be able to continue to do this tedious, laborious work, they need some money. And the money would come from flagging content on Meta's dashboard. Now, if that option is gone, there are two things that happen. One is fact checkers don't get enough money. They have to look for grants, and they have to look at how do you make a fact checking story viral? You can't, right? So that money doesn't come. And the second, of course, is the reason. The second problem is that the fact checkers don't have enough reach. Nobody reads a fact check story unless it appears along with the post which has been fact checked, which is what used to happen with Meta. And that has become a problem for fact checkers. And then after that, it's basically it's a free for all. Anybody can put in any post, and nobody can even contest it.
Okay. So when when Facebook says they're shutting down the US part of the fact-checking network, what exactly do they mean? Are they referring to the fact-checking websites in the United States, or so how do they differentiate the various geographies? I mean, how do they like say for instance the India part of it will still be working, Europe will still be working, right?
We don't know. They haven't
Okay.
made that very clear. They haven't made that clear at all. First of all, we need to remember that Facebook and Meta is a business. Their basic underlying premise is that they have to make profits. And therefore, they will do what the government of the place and the day will say.
Okay.
Right. So if you look at how Meta initially was against Trump, they actually banned Trump from Facebook and so on and so forth. And they talked about how much misinformation was floating on their platform. But if you look at when there were signs that Trump was winning the elections, he started putting out a note. Zuckerberg put out a note to the House Judiciary Committee that actually said he came under pressure from the Biden government to hide misinformation on COVID. He said that. And then after that, he started talking about how Trump was this great guy. And when Trump had, had that photograph with his fist up when the first assassination attempt happened. And Zuckerberg talked about what a wonderful photograph it was and what a great guy Trump was. So basically, these are all business people. They will bend with the wind. Now, what the EU decides, or what the Australian government decides, because these are the two places that have very, very strict laws on privacy, on platforms, and so on and so forth. I'm quite certain that Meta will be happy to follow those laws.
Hmm.
Meta will do what the Indian government asks it to do. We don't know
Right.
what the Indian government has asked it to do or is going to ask it to do, but Meta will follow that because finally it needs to make money.
So, if you take the whole thing into the political space, how do you think it's going to impinge on the politics of the US now that Trump is just about to take over?
So if you
In the
look
sense,
at yes, so
continue.
so basically, go on.
No, no, please continue. Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah.
No,
So
no.
basically, what Meta has done is it has followed Elon Musk.
Hmm.
It has
Okay.
said that it will do community notes or along the lines of community notes on X, and he has mentioned that. Now, how does community notes work? So let's say there is a bit of false information on Twitter, on X. Now, somebody as a user, one person as say me or anyone else as a user has to sign up and then say this information is wrong. Sometimes you
Hmm.
could provide a link and say this information is wrong. Please see this link. And usually the link that they provide used to come from a fact-checking website.
Earlier,
And
right?
then, even after you've provided the link and said this is wrong, other users can sign up and upvote or downvote your note.
Oh.
So, if there are a lot of people who've downvoted your vote, then downvoted your post, then nobody cares about the fact that you were right or wrong. It's
Hmm.
a question of might. Who is bigger? Right. So
Okay.
you might have put something out and said that this is wrong for these reasons, but
Hmm.
somebody else would have downvoted it not because what you said is wrong, but because they don't agree with what you say.
Right. Hmm.
Right. So there might be a lot of people who would be downvoting you simply because they don't agree with you. And then the excuse that Musk and Mark Zuckerberg have come up with is this whole question of freedom of speech, which is clearly again following what Trump has been saying about how the freedom of speech has been restricted on social media platforms, how had to start his own social media platform because he was banned from Twitter at that
Yeah.
time, and how he was banned from Facebook, and so on and so forth. And this whole question of freedom of speech, and then comes the debate, which is not debated, which is freedom of speech versus putting out misinformation.
So basically, what has happened politically is that the Facebook and Twitter, I mean, as we spoke, indicated earlier, they have moved towards Trump's view of the world or his mindset because Trump is known to exaggerate. In fact, freely give out misinformation, as we saw in the campaign speech, not campaign speech, the campaign debate with Kamala Harris. So these kind of issues will not get challenged, basically.
No, they will not get challenged. They will not get challenged. They will simply be accepted for what they are. It's up to the user or the reader to use their discretion and find out if any information is right or wrong. But who's going to do that?
Yeah, yeah.
Now, what I think will happen is that the bigger fact-checking websites like Politico and the others that are sponsored, so there are who come from legacy media websites who are fairly economically stable. They might still continue doing their work,
Hmm.
but their
Yeah,
work will not show up on Meta's platforms, so they will not
right.
get any reach.
Yeah, yeah. They
So
can't
they might
beat
as well
Meta's
be
reach.
shouting in the dark, and
Yeah.
nobody will even know that they're there.
Okay. So, how do you think this is going to? I mean, so this is going to be chaotic as far as news is concerned, and the authenticity of news, what to believe, what not to believe, etc. I mean, is it that is it that kind of a scenario, or am I just just speculating wildly? I mean, is that the situation? I mean, how bad is it basically?
So in the US, if you look at all the surveys, people have already lost faith in the media. they do not believe anything that the media says. I'm sure if you did a survey in India as well, the media is no longer the source of information. People are looking at influencers. People are looking at any random person with an opinion to hold, whether that opinion is substantiated in facts and well-reasoned arguments is never a question. Right? So it is going to be chaotic. But in the long run, I'm hoping that there'll be a separation of the wheat and the chaff. People will begin to realize that this is not correct and this is not how things have to be put out. So even if you look at it, I think even now, though they might not completely trust the media, if you wanted to check some news out, you would normally go to a legacy media house.
Yeah.
But the trouble is, a lot of people these days will go to social media to check if the news is true. And it's not just youngsters. If you look at Australia, for instance, most of the news comes from Facebook. Most of them access their news from Facebook. And therefore, it is really worrisome it's really worrisome to think about what could happen with misinformation. What are people going to believe?
Yeah.
That is a bit worrisome.
Well, I mean, with Trump taking over, and then he's just the beginning of his term now, the second term. So in the next 4 years, we're going to see a massive, consequence of these kind of decisions. Yeah. So, well, I mean, I just hope there is a kind of a pushback to this, Kanchan. I mean, is there any hope?
There has been pushback. There has been pushback from a lot of fact checkers. Maria Ricci in the Philippines, the Nobel Prize winner, has also pushed back on it and talked about how this is you're just opening up a can of worms by allowing false information to spread wildly, and a lot of organizations have pushed back. But I think at the end of it, it all depends on what people do. Are they going to really continue looking at social media? Are they going to continue believing social media? Or are they going to use their brains and look for information and see if whatever they're reading is right or not right? It is finally up to the user to decide whether this works or doesn't work. And I think that decision that voters and readers and users of social media take is what is going to decide the future of journalism, news, misinformation.
Yeah. Thank you, Kanchan. That was really good to hear from you on this, because you're so much involved in this for a pretty long time now. So let's, probably we'll also need to have more conversations on this. Let's see the next couple of years, maybe, if there are more developments on this front, at least.
Certainly, it's going to get more interesting, because Zuckerberg just got rid of his diversity, equity, and inclusion policy as well.
Right.
So there is going to be a lot more interesting work that's going to happen. It's going to be, we are going to live in interesting times, as they say.
Thank you, Kanchan. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lakshmi.